Welcome back to the Framework Podcast. Here, we encourage, we empower, and we educate our listeners because we believe the more you change your thinking, the more you can change your life. I'm David Waselkow, therapist and consultant, here with my friend and colleague, Tyler Burke. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm good. It's always good to do this with you.
It is always good to do this with you, too. How's your week been?
My week has been awesome. All kinds of good things going on.
Yeah? You're
Yeah.
doing a lot with your work, too, your other work.
We are, yeah. We've got a series. I've been podcasting with somebody else.
How dare you?
I know. I feel like feels weird.
What, are you cheating on me?
Yeah.
Oh, you bastard. Tell us about it.
You're prettier?
Well, thank you. That makes up for it.
Okay. Tell you about it. We're starting a series called the Perspectives series, and we in my industry we provide training to folks that support others with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and we are launching a series called Perspectives, where we look at a different perspective within human services every week, and really the idea behind it is just to open a dialogue, start a discussion about possible ways of thinking that may help us get from where we are right now as a system to hopefully probably where we know we need to go. And hopefully we can make some long-term change as we go.
Yeah, I'm absolutely confident you're going to. It's
Yeah.
really exciting. The stuff that I've seen is just brilliant, and it's really, really cool.
Appreciate it.
Really exciting.
Yeah.
Really exciting. And the idea of opening a dialogue, the idea of creating what I've called and what others have called previously the grand conversation, the big conversation, is exciting because you're doing seed change here, systemic level change on something that needs to change and is highly resistant to change.
Yeah, I mean, we hope to play any role we can within that. It's a big undertaking. There's a lot to be done. People deserve a lot better than what they get oftentimes, and it just doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It's so cool. Good for you. And how was your 4th?
My 4th is awesome. Spent a lot of time in the pool with the family.
Yeah, love that. Love it.
Yeah. You?
Yeah, epic 4th of July. Had a great time with my woman. We did some barbecuing. We did some fun stuff at home. Didn't want to be out on the road and traveling because there's a lot of craziness that goes on around that time. So
agreed.
We had an awesome time. It was really good. Don't like living in a fucking oven right now like we are in Arizona. But aside from that, I'm all kinds of happy.
This is definitely an oven.
It
feels like an air fryer on the golf course. It's just hot wind hitting you.
It is. And it's more than a Chinook. So there's our word for the day.
A Chinook.
Yeah. A Chinook is a warm or hot wind. And it's more than that. It's like having a blower from the oven and we're baking.
Oh, so it's kind of like a haboob, but a Chinook.
Yes. Yeah. The haboob is wind with sand. This is the Chinook is just the wind. And it's hot or warm.
Okay.
For us, it's hot. And playing golf in that I'm still trying to recover from the unmitigated disaster of the back 9 on Weekapaw.
It was a combination of the heat and 200 swings.
Yes. As I was joking, I was playing whack fuck the last time instead of playing golf because it was whack and was, But lucky, I got back in with my school, my golf coach, and got untangled there and got some great perspective. So I'm ready to get after it this Sunday and do better.
You got encouraged, empowered, and educated somewhere else.
Indeed, I did.
And hopefully it changes your life.
Yeah, and it has. And it is certainly going to change. It has changed and will continue to change my golf life. But It is interesting because there's a lot of things that he does that are similar to what we do. There's a lot of philosophy, a lot of teaching, a lot of ways of being. And I find that even when I practice, because of the thing he asks us to focus on, it's a self-care meditative type of a moment because the entire time, the only thing that I'm focusing on is this concept and this art of stillness, being still. And that's an empowering and really interesting thing and experience, that getting into the spiritual realm there with golf. And I love it.
Nothing better.
Yeah.
Close.
Well, my score could be better.
That's true.
And it will be. I'm going to kick both your asses here soon.
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right. So tonight, the subject is what I call, there's different ways to phrase this obviously, but I call it coded language. In interpersonal relationships, we oftentimes are working within or dealing with what I call coded language. And so it's, a good way to think of this is a person seems like they're saying something, or a person seems like they're saying a lot. And the truth is, they're either not saying anything at all or not anything really useful or meaningful, or they're saying something to evade or avoid saying something else. And the something else that they're evading and avoiding is more often than not the truth, the why, and the thing that is contributive to a much more productive conversation. So we're going to help you in all your relationships. It isn't just romantic, sexual relationships that we're talking about on this one and many others. It's any relationship with your boss, with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family, siblings, whatever. How to decode language. We're going to empower you with a bit of a decoder ring so you can say, oh, okay, I'm hearing that now. I remember those guys talking about it. And you're going to be able to confront it, not from an aggressive point of view or I want to start a fight or a conflict point of view, but from a point of view, I really want to get to a point of understanding. And the language here is so coded that is distracting us from having the kind of communication and really the kind of understanding that we're wanting to achieve mutually. So, coded language.
Are you able to decode? See, mumbling.
Well, the way I decode that, I say, what?
I say, huh?
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Say again?
Okay. I wish you could, because everybody that knows me would appreciate it.
That is your understated nature, I believe. And you're not a particularly gregarious fellow.
Who you
So,
calling gregarious?
right. You're a relatively understated, quite admirably humble person who's soft spoken.
Yeah. Sometimes the words just kind of come out monotone, like you haven't noticed.
But isn't that good for this kind of format or kind of radio?
Monotone? I don't think so.
Well, not monotone, but just kind of even and
Yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. They call it professional.
They do.
In my line of work. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not often called
Like,
that.
wow, he's good.
Oh,
That's how you mumble, folks.
that's well.
Anyway,
everybody's got to be good at something.
We digress.
But we digress. All right. So coded language. By the way, the code there was self-deprecation, in case you didn't know. All right. We got a list here, top 8. There's more, obviously. There could be less, but these are 8 that I see and work with most frequently in therapy with individuals and with couples and families. You may add to the list, and for you guys who listen to this and listen to it regularly, which I want you to listen for is how we also apply our core principles, right? So this is a unique topic, coded language, but everything that we do in the framework, it all orbits around our core principles, right? And there's 12 to 15 of those. We've talked about them at various times in different podcasts. So what I want you to do is I want you to listen for the core principles and remember what those are, because that helps us go from the encouragement, the empowerment, the education that we're doing here so that you can apply this out in the wild and so that you can do this yourself effectively. It's all about changing your thinking to change your life, right? So here's how we kind of do that and think about the core principles. We'll cue you in on one of the biggest ones at the end. See if you can figure it out before we get there. All right, first example, I guess, of coded language. You ever hear this one? You're not listening to me. So, what do you think about that one?
I'm sorry, what?
Right.
I wasn't listening. I don't know what the hell you just said. What do I think about that? I think that I think I think every time I've said it, I'm just not getting the response I'm looking for,
Right.
or it didn't end. It didn't end the argument, or
Right.
something didn't happen. I just didn't get it back.
Or it made it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not the answer I was looking for. So decoding that statement, you're not listening to me. One of the things that usually indicates, and if we decode it and translate it, it's um, I'm not successful in persuading you that I'm right. So
Hmm.
if we confuse those two things and we say to another person, you're not listening to me, instead of saying what's really going on, which is I'm dissatisfied because I'm obviously not persuading you to think like I think, or I'm not winning this argument,
Mm-hmm.
but we wrap it in this coded language of you're not listening to me, then we're transferring the disappointment we have that the other person is not agreeing with us. We're transferring that onto them and calling them bad or wrong and making them contend with a false allegation. Because what's the immediate response when someone says, you're not listening to me?
Them too.
Right. And then the response there is, are not.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get caught up in this touchy-feely kind of from the tradition of therapy, but badly, where then someone says, well, how does that then make you feel? Or, well, then let's paraphrase and let's summarize. Okay. Now, I know I'm making fun of those things, and trust me, for good reason, but there's good times to do paraphrase. There's good times to do restating. But here's the problem. If we're restating the thing that we already don't agree with to demonstrate that we're listening, then we're repeating the problem, right? So the problem is not a listening problem. I hear you just fine. The problem is I'm not in agreement with you. And for one reason or another, we're either frightened because of our prohibitive thinking to state that, or we're busy defending ourselves, trying to somehow demonstrate that we are listening, that we did hear, but that despite what we heard, we just simply don't agree.
Well, it seems like it would go beyond just being heard or agreed with, but also if the person's not changing their behavior, they're not doing what they're told.
Oof.
Like you're not
Bingo.
listening to what I'm telling you to do.
Right,
The trash is still outside. So
right,
what is going on?
right. So I'll know that you're hearing me when you become compliant with my request or my need.
Yeah.
But if there's a disagreement about that about that request or that need,
Mm-hmm.
and the behavior doesn't alter, that doesn't mean someone isn't listening or doesn't hear. It means they don't fucking agree.
Yeah.
And so now we're in a rule dispute about, well, what? Must we agree on everything in order to know that we're heard? And then it takes the next step of, well, because you don't hear me or listen to me, you must not respect me. And so now we're 2 orders of magnitude away from the original dilemma. And we're doing a lot of talking and, ironically, a lot of listening. But now we're arguing points that are completely irrelevant to what actually was happening and what is happening, and utterly distracted. Right. So if you say to someone, you're not listening to me, you're really not telling the truth. What you're needing to say in that moment is, I'm reading or sensing from you that you're uncomfortable with what I'm saying or that you're disagreeing with what I'm saying, right? But that's fundamentally different from the accusation of you're not listening to me, because the only thing that statement does is provoke the need for an affirmative defense about something that's not happening.
Hmm. Interesting.
Indeed, what's rumbling around in that grape of yours?
Well, I'm just thinking of it sort of, it's just a needless way to likely provoke a fight.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
right. I mean, there's certainly other ways. And you just alluded to it. I mean, um, and I would assume that most of these statements that we're going to talk through and go through today is that very thing. Just
It
a,
is.
yeah.
And one leads to another. These things often fit together. One can compound the
Mm-hmm.
other, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This one goes really good to always and never, which we're going to get to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, decoding that language right from the very beginning means that rather than spending all kinds of time on the back end discussing or arguing about what's not happening, means we can invest in discussing what is happening. So you make that short, small investment on the front end in a way to prevent having to do all this untangling on the back end.
Mm.
So if somebody says to you, "You're not listening to me," sort of authoritarian or whatever, say, "Actually, I am listening to you. I've heard you. I simply disagree." Or, "I'm taking a moment to think about what you're saying." That puts us back on track. And now we're not distracted by this fear-based mythology that suddenly someone is hard of hearing. No one's hard of hearing like that unless you really are hard of hearing. The problem is I'm not buying it, or I don't agree, or I don't want to talk about this and I don't want to get into a fight,
Yeah.
but we got to tell the truth. And the truth is not that you're not listening. The truth is something else. Go ahead.
Well, and I think there's also times where the other person is not really looking for an active listener. They're looking for an active doer.
Talk more about that. I love that.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to, be present, listen, reaffirm, whatever. But it seems there's often times where you're trying to evoke a response of either a physical response, some type of action, something, because clearly you're not hearing me, because if you did, you'd do it.
Right.
So there must be some kind of, auditory breakdown going on here or something, but
Right. And then there's also a need for affirmation. And one of the funniest examples I've ever heard of this is from an old Chris Rock comedy special when he's talking about kind of marital communication. And, the wife or his wife is saying, I just want you to listen to me. I don't want you to fix my problem. I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to listen. So he's like, well, how do you do that? And he's like, what? You don't say. No, really? No, I told you that bitch crazy, right? And it's hilarious. And what is he doing in that very moment? He's trying to demonstrate that he's listening, but he's also trying to not do the things that he was asked not to do, like fix the problem. But quite frankly, when a person says, I need you to listen, they're asking for something that's automatically happening, right? You wouldn't even make the request if you truly believe someone couldn't hear.
yeah.
And you're not signing it or writing it out. You're not saying, I need you to read this, right? So, decoded, what does I need you to listen really mean? Now we're getting at the why, because the why may be what I need right now is validation. What I need right now is comfort. What I need right now is affirmation, right? But it's coded in this language of listening. So honestly, how do you demonstrate that you're listening? Well, you go, yeah, right?
It seems like it's probably another way to say, I need you to care
Yep,
too, right?
right,
You look at me dead in the eyes, but I feel like you're either not present or you just don't give a shit.
right,
Yeah.
right. So now we're talking about need fulfillment and we're talking about the why. So when somebody says, I need you to listen to me, say, okay, what are you needing right now? And why is that important to you? And how can I demonstrate that to you? Well, just listen. Okay, I can do that. Then what? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it works both ways.
I learned and this is probably going to work for a lot of these. Sorry. I learned a lot of, or a statement from a guy. He was an advocate, actually, and I use it all the time. And it shocked me the first time I heard it. But he said, "Say what you just said, but use different words."
Mm-hmm.
And that works in so many different areas. It's like an instant decoder. It would seem like,
Right.
I see where you're trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Try again.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you know what the person is getting at, it can sort of shift the conversation a little bit, and I've even seen people sort of change their approach because they realized,
Yep.
yeah, you're right, I was being a dick,
Right.
or something. You know?
Right. And that really is about the why,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they say all behavior is goal directed. One of our principles, right? All behavior is goal directed. We're all trying to accomplish something with the behaviors that we select. Communication is a form of behavior. So, it fits in here. So the question is, what's my why? And we've learned that sometimes our why isn't necessarily righteous, right? But other
Mm-hmm.
times it is. And that statement, say what you're saying, but use different words. I think I know where you're going means, okay, I have a missing information problem here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to make an attribution as to what I think your why is, and then I'm operating from that attribution or that assumption to demonstrate that I'm listening.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we really talking about here? We're talking about not listening, we're talking about understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And demonstrating a competence with that understanding. And if we need to do that and want to do that, we can't get there without clarity on the why. So if we think we know what the why is, if you want to do any kind of active listening, either through summary or paraphrasing, don't restate what the other person said. Ask them about their why, or tell them the why that you think you just heard, because then they have an opportunity to correct that why and then know that they're being heard. Still not agreed with, but heard,
Mm-hmm.
right? So getting clarity on the why is kind of the antidote to decoding this coded language of you're not listening to me. I need to listen. I need you to listen to me. I need you to hear me. Because if the why is, okay, are you needing me to agree with you? Are you needing me to support you? Are you needing me to think through this with you? Or, what is your why? What is the need?
I would think an alternate why would be, why do you think I'm not listening?
Right.
I'm looking at you. I'm hearing you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why why you're feeling like that.
Yep. What is prompting you to think that way or feel that
Yeah.
way? Yep. Yep. And then that uncovers rules. It uncovers
Yeah.
why, right? So decoding that simple language, it gets thrown around all the time. Don't fall down these rabbit holes, folks. Don't be distracted by these non-specific fragments of what's masquerading as communication, because that statement utterly is meaningless. If we take it literally, it's meaningless and it's inconceivable unless you're hearing impaired, right? So it means so much more.
We had a conversation before this talking about schema and the sort of the
Yeah.
different ways that we think and why we think what we think. I mean, it seems
Yep.
like this very well could just be something that has always been said, or
Mm-hmm.
was told to them, or is
Mm-hmm.
just sort of even a pattern of even uh, might even be a statement that you were been told often
Yep.
previous and coming up, and not even really knowing why or what's behind it.
Absolutely. And this that schema could be family system of origin rules, where what happened was you were dismissed when you were trying to be expressive. And so you developed a sensitivity to that. And now every time someone doesn't agree with you or someone doesn't think that what you're saying is really interesting or funny or relevant, then all of a sudden you're lit up like a pinball machine because this reminds you of your family of origin. And so you become angry and you become aggressive and you accuse the other person of not listening. But again, unless they're hearing impaired, you're accusing them of something that they're incapable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all being heard, right? The real question is it being understood? Are we coming to an agreement? Is there clarity on the concepts? Yeah, all of those things are part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to decode this and stop focusing on this idea of trying to demonstrate that we're listening, because unless you're hearing impaired, you're demonstrating you're listening,
Mm-hmm.
right? The why is the important thing to ferret out when you're decoding that one.
Yep.
Okay. All right. The second one. This is one of the top things I hear in the first 5 minutes of most couples and sex therapy sessions. I hear it in other places too. We just can't communicate.
I know I've never said that in couples therapy.
Right. So think about it. Okay. There's a tradition, a theoretical tradition, and yes.
No, good.
Oh, in philosophy, psychotherapy,
Mhm.
going all the way back to the 60s to something called the Palo Alto group, also the Milan group too, but scholars, authors like Watzlawick, in the book, The Pragmatics of Human Communication, one of their rules of communication is we cannot not communicate. So the truth is we're communicating all the time. Your problem is not that you can't communicate. The problem is we're not communicating in a way that is effective or satisfying. But remember, we cannot not communicate. Now, this is really important, right? Especially if you're not coming in to see me for therapy or us for consulting or whatever. You're relying on the podcast to help you through, or you're relying on this in addition to coming in, and it's a supplement for you, a resource for you. We got to get good at problem identification, not problem focus. Okay. One of the consistent, appropriate criticisms of therapy is that all we do is talk about problems and focus on problems. And I'm in 100% agreement with that critique of therapy. 100%. However, we have to define problems first before we can start talking about solutions. Otherwise, that's like saying we're lost, but we're making good time. If you're identifying that your problem is that you cannot communicate, you haven't identified the problem yet.
Is it a better question to try to identify the need or unmet need rather than the problem?
Absolutely. And usually the need or unmet need is the fucking problem.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
Right. Right.
In a
Notice
less
how I was listening.
right.
Yeah.
In a less probably what the hell's the word?
Mm.
Not attacking way, but it's just it's a far easier way to probably um, affirmatively ask for
Hmm.
or to clarify something to talk about the need than the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. So,
Was it?
huh?
I'll remember the word in a minute and then I'll come back to it.
Okay. That sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, if you're thinking that your problem is we can't communicate, you have not yet identified the problem because we cannot not communicate. Even if the only communication that's occurring is nonverbal, we're still communicating. And in the Pragmatics of Human Communication, which is a classic text, it's a thick, tough read. But if you're really interested in communication, I think that there's no better original text than that, by the way. And they talk about, in the parlance of that time, things like digital communication and analog communication and different types of things. But the point is, you cannot not communicate. So if you're thinking that the problem is you can't communicate, you haven't identified the problem yet. So
Mm.
ask yourself, okay, what is hurting me, angering me, frustrating me, confusing me about the way that we are currently communicating? Because even if you're not speaking to one another, but you're throwing each other dirty looks and we're slamming doors and we're doing avoidance or we're doing silence or we're doing shutdown, that's communication. What's that communicating? Go away. I don't want to talk. So, what's the problem? I'm having difficulty connecting with my partner. I'm having difficulty getting them to communicate with me their thoughts and feelings about this particular issue, right? But it's not that we cannot communicate.
Well, could that also just indicate that one party is unwilling to actually communicate anything of
Mhm.
depth
Yeah.
other than angry faces, pissed offness,
Yeah.
fine, all that kind of shit.
Yep.
Right.
So really it's about, I think we're having problems with emotional regulation. I think we're having problems with expressiveness. I think we're having problems with safety. And I think we're having problems with clarity and understanding. Well, all right.
And probably a lack of uh, even being available to explain what the why is.
Yes.
I'll tell you I'm pissed off all the time,
Right.
but we never get to really what's behind it.
Right. The why behind it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So remember, we're always communicating. You can communicate. The problem is we're not communicating effectively and we're getting distracted. A lot of this coded language is distraction from the real issue, from the real matter. And it is pretend language because it's ultimately empty and useless in addition to distracting. And it moves us away from content and towards other things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So uh, remember, you cannot not communicate. So, third one related to this, meaningless tautologies as coded language. So, a tautology is a circular argument. Um, that's what that means, just generally speaking. There's a more formal definition. You can look it up if you're interested, but circular argument, circular logic. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld who did this most hilariously. My number one pet peeve tautology, when I hear people say it, it makes my head spin around, is the phrase, it is what it is. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's a tautology and it's meaningless. It's utterly meaningless. And so the joke is, oh, people are people, business is business, the rules are the rules, and it is what it is. Okay. That's a whole bunch of words, and you said not one fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
You said nothing, right? So you coded all the things that you're thinking and you're feeling into these meaningless horseshit statements that are circular in nature, that are tautological and go nowhere and mean nothing. And everyone does what? Oh yeah, it is what it is. You're right. People are people. Well, yeah, business is business, and yeah, I guess it is what it is. And we just had this conversation with lots of words, and nobody said a fucking thing.
Yeah.
Not one thing. Meaningless tautologies.
I thought tautology was the study of tatas. I guess it's not. No, I think
It's
that
not a subfield of women's studies either, by the way. A lot of people majored in that thinking it was one thing and realized it's something else entirely. But
yeah, you signed up for AP tautology.
Tautology.
Tautology. I think when you say, business is business, or it is what it is, or something, it's a way to actually sound intelligent and like it's something else, someone else's fault.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how business is business. It's not personal. I screwed you over, but hey, business is business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what that is code for is, hey, I'm not accountable for any of this. I really don't understand what's going on. I don't have the balls to tell you I don't understand it and can't really effectively communicate it. But business is business.
Yeah, it's not my fault. It's how business goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Meaningless tautology. It's designed to convey some sort of expertise. It's designed to be this shortcut so that we don't have to go through details or the minutiae, and we can just actually communicate with nothing but conclusions and jingos, you know?
Hmm.
Home of the free, land of the brave, as George Carlin did too brilliantly. He was masterful with language, right?
Yeah.
But it's all a distraction and it's cover, because what it really means is I don't know how to talk about what I'm thinking or feeling, or I don't want to talk about what I'm thinking or feeling. And very often, folks, meaningless tautologies are techniques used by avoidant dismissives. It is what it is, right? Well, that depends on what is.
Usually shit.
Right, right. What do you mean it is what it is? What is it?
No one's ever said that about something good.
Right,
But
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sexually satisfied, so it is what it is. What? Yeah. So it's an avoidance technique,
Mm-hmm.
and it's designed to shut down communication. It's designed to shut down dialogue. It's a signal. I'm uncomfortable talking about this. I'm not ready to talk about this. I don't know how to talk about this, right? So it would be better to say that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're tempted to use meaningless tautologies, or if you're on the receiving end of meaningless tautologies, we can do clarification and say, the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
What's really going on here? Or in other words, what's the why? Is there some prohibitive thinking here? Ask those questions to decode the coded language of the meaningless tautology.
Seems like every time I've said it, it's usually like the universe just fucking me or something. Or,
Right.
you know, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Like, ugh,
Right.
whatever it is, what it is.
Yeah. Because
I'm exhausted to even deal with it. It is.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
but
Because honestly, how often are you going to run into somebody with a self-awareness that's going to say something like, yeah, I'm laboring to accept the reality of this without endorsing it. Right. So we just use this fake
yeah.
language. Oh, it is what it is. And everybody nods their head like we know what the fuck you're talking about. But we really don't. We're just getting a sign that says this conversation on this particular subject is now over. It's a conclusion statement that is meaningless and empty. It contains literally nothing.
So I'm sensing a bit of a theme here. And it seems like if those statements are being said, um, probably in either direction, it may be appropriate to sort of take a step back and either direction ask, why would you say that? Or what do you mean by that?
Right.
I need some further clarity because this is some coded shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard this podcast and they were talking about decoding and you're talking in code language.
Right.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. They use humor and sarcasm. Say, do you come with a decoder ring? Because I need one right now. Like, did you come with an instruction manual?
Yeah.
And sometimes that kind of humor can disarm,
Mm-hmm.
right? But really what we're saying is, okay, what's really going on here? And what's really happening?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you care and if you're interested, and by the way, if you're listening, why would you accept something so vague and generic as to render itself utterly meaningless and then pretend you have understanding? That's lazy, pure laziness. And I think statements like it is what it is and people are people and business is business is really laziness. I think oftentimes it's a lack of courage and it's avoidance. So don't let that brand of coded language distract you or seduce you into anything else or make it permissible to shut down dialogue when there's more that you're thinking or feeling that needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Frogs in our throats tonight.
Indeed, it's because we live in an oven and we're parched and dehydrated. And I get criticism for having my Yeti on the table, which I don't like. So I was trying to accommodate that. So it's sitting on the floor, but I'm not drinking my water as much. And yet, my why there is that someone from Yeti is going to listen to this podcast and say, we like these fuckers and we're going to sponsor this podcast.
Camera's on me. Go get your freaking Yeti. Everybody can look at me while we listen to you drink.
There it is. There's my Yeti.
I don't know why I'm listening to my microphone. That's maybe how they work.
Fantastic. There's Daddy's Yeti right there. Monogrammed too, folks, by the way.
Okay.
Yeti, if you're listening, we're big fans. At least Daddy is. And you can sponsor this at whatever level you're interested in. How's that for effective communication?
I'm sure they'll throw us a quarter.
I'll take it.
All right.
All right. Here's one that may seem, more than likely feel to you controversial, but it's true, and I'm going to go there. Coded language or an inaccurate statement or a steaming pile of horseshit, whatever you want to call it, is this phrase: You make me feel ... whatever it is. You make me feel sad. You make me feel angry. You make me feel inadequate. You make me feel ...
Like a natural woman.
Yeah, like a natural woman. Oh, Jolie. How about me throwing down that reference? That takes us way back. Now we're talking like Nixon or Kennedy administration shit now. Yeah, you make me feel. Okay. First of all, impossible. Impossible. I cannot make you feel anything. You cannot make me feel anything. Nothing. So, off camera, before we started, I believe your response was, what? Really? So,
Well, I mean, I feel like I could evoke a lot of things inside of you right now through various things to do or say.
you feel that way, huh?
I do feel that way.
Mm-hmm. And what are feelings again?
I know they're not truth, but I'm saying I feel like I could evoke something in you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a minute. I'm going to try it.
Okay. So now we're not trying to be pedantic. I'm not trying to be, and nor am
You're
I.
a prick. Okay.
I love it. I love it. But that's a good example.
I tried.
Yeah. I suppose you thought that you could evoke a feeling of anger in me by calling me a prick.
I was trying to evoke a laughing sensation.
Oh, okay. Well,
I was trying to make you laugh.
Oh, well, so then you evoked a behavior as opposed to a feeling?
It seems like I got it done.
Yeah.
Did I make you feel
That's what she said. All right. So we know feelings are real. Okay. Absolutely. Feelings are real. We also know that feelings matter. Both of those things are 100% true. We also know that feelings are not facts, right? Think about it. Feelings are automatically and autonomically occurring within the individual. They are spontaneous, right? They're not manufactured, right? You can't manufacture sadness. You can't manufacture depression. You can't manufacture a feeling. It's an automatically occurring thing within a person, okay? Since that is the case, it is impossible that another person can make something occur inside of you that only occurs inside of you.
But if it's automatic
and autonomic,
fine, but wouldn't I still be able to evoke that automatic response back from you?
No, because it's near automatic, I guess I should say, because now it's about the meaning I assign to the event.
Oh, you went there.
I did go there, baby. So when we did the prick example and you were wanting to evoke something, right? What that really meant is that you guessed accurately with a reasonable hypothesis that the meaning that I would assign to that event is that you're being funny. And the meaning I assigned to that event was that was funny. Now, what was available to me was the opportunity to assign to that event the meaning that you were being a dick or that you were being mean-spirited or unkind or whatever. And if I assign that meaning to the event, then how am I going to feel? Okay, I'm going to feel sad or angry or whatever. But that's not because you made me feel that way. That's because I went there with my brain. The way I assigned meaning to that event then sparked the autonomic stuff inside of myself. And then my self-awareness is what's telling me, okay, right now I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling threatened or I'm feeling sad. But I cannot say, well, Tyler made me feel that way, because literally I'm trying to transfer onto Tyler something over which he has absolutely no ability to influence or control. It all occurred or occurs within me. Go ahead.
I think I just understood this. Not because of what you just said, mostly, but because of
Way to
some
make
of
a
it, though.
Smith.
Some of it. But the thought that I had that it seemed to make it click was, um, if I try to make someone feel some way,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm trying to be affectionate or trying to communicate something very positive,
Mm-hmm.
and the response I get is they get super pissed off, and they have the response is some emotion that I was not even intending to do.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't have anything to do with me. That was all on them
Yeah.
to respond to that, and it just wasn't what I expected
Right.
or what I intended or hoped for.
Well, it's a good example. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you upset because I said it had nothing to do with what you said?
Not at all.
Okay.
No. That's you hypothesizing and assigning a meaning to an event.
Okay.
Yeah, baby.
Good.
Yeah. So now, many of these examples we've talked about are communication devices that sort of are meaningless or empty sometimes, but they're also communication devices designed to achieve other objectives. This is one of those communication devices where the other objective is we're trying to avoid taking responsibility for our own emotional state. And we're trying to transfer the responsibility of that emotional state onto the other person, and therefore not doing accountability and not doing responsibility. Now, there's a correlation, there's a linkage, right? Somebody says something, somebody does something, a feeling occurs inside of us, but we got to remember feelings are a consequence of what we think and believe. So, however you feel is a result, a consequence of what your brain does with the stimuli in the environment. So, if you come into a situation, let's say already insecure, and then somebody makes a joke at your expense, and now you're feeling embarrassed. And so now you're going to say, Tyler's a dick because he embarrassed me, right? What's happening? You're transferring the responsibility for your own insecurity onto Tyler and trying to make him responsible for how you feel. Now, the only thing that Tyler's responsible for in that is the utilization of his own language and its appropriateness or lack thereof, right? But he literally cannot be responsible for how you feel. And by the way, how you feel is a function of how you think about what you believe, see in yourself. Because if you had healthier self esteem or a better sense of humor or whatever, the meaning that you assign to that event and the options of meanings that you could assign to that event are totally different, right? So, you make me feel is you or the other person avoiding personal responsibility and transferring responsibility onto somebody else, quite literally for your emotional state. It's not possible.
I like the concept and the idea of what's going on because you could flip it around too.
Oh, I love when you do this.
Uh, Meaning, you are, even if you're intentionally trying to hurt my feelings or be mean or do something like that, I don't have to own it,
That's right.
right? Or if you are just a dick, or you are in a terrible marriage or a awful friendship or whatever that bad boss, whatever it is,
Yep.
and they can be whatever they're going to be. It doesn't have to affect us.
Not at all.
Easier said than done, obviously, but I think for me, it's actually quite helpful to think through the process and dynamic of what's going on,
Yes.
and sort of the brain function in it all.
Yeah.
Because
go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying there's still a conscious choice on both parties.
Always.
Yeah.
And by the way, everything is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But just because that's true doesn't mean it's impossible. Just like if it's hard, that doesn't mean it's impossible, right? But your point is very important and very well made. And if you guys recall from previous podcasts, when I talk about the power of a paradoxical intention, to Tyler's point, somebody comes at me and calls me an asshole or a prick or whatever, right? So they're bringing energy, they're bringing aggression towards me, all right? Now, if I resist that and I say, you know what, screw you, you're an asshole, right? Well, okay, now I'm taking it personally, right? And so now I'm bringing aggression and energy towards them. We meet in the middle, all right? And I often do this in therapy. So we got energy and aggression coming this way, energy, aggression coming this way. It meets in the middle that's pressing on one another. Resistance is what's driving this side, aggression driving this side. What's created in this space?
Pressure, tension.
Yes, pressure and tension, exuding a lot of effort to go absolutely nowhere. Why? Because we're stable. We're stuck. It can't move or go anywhere because it's equal forces pressing upon one another, right? Whereas, if this happens, David, you're really an asshole. And I say, yeah, at times I could be an asshole. What are you going to say to that? What's a person going to say to that? It stops them right in their tracks. Why? Because I'm not resisting. Because I'm not internalizing. I'm not absorbing. I'm not contending with the idea that this person is speaking truth.
Well, it takes a tremendous amount of self-esteem and confidence and probably a few things to be able to let that not feel the need to push back.
Right. It absolutely does. And the other thing it takes is honesty, because what I follow up with people when I use this example is, listen, I don't take any risk in affirming the accusation because I'm certain at some point in my 53 years of existence, I've demonstrated behavior consistent with assholia. Right? So it's no risk to me. But if my self-esteem is low, or if I'm frightened or I'm intimidated or I'm threatened or whatever, then I'm going to have that kind of a response to it. And then I'm going to say, you made me feel the way that you've made me feel. So we got to be honest here.
Yeah.
We got to be honest. And the truth is, how you feel is a result of how you think and what you believe. And very often, those two things, how you think, what you believe, is a consequence of the meaning that you assign to a particular event. When we assign meaning to events, conclusions take root and we operate from those conclusions as if they're true. But sometimes those can be negative, false conclusions. And listen, we do this as human beings. It's what separates us from any other mammal on the planet. We have the ability to interpret environmental events, environmental stimuli, and put them into context. That's how we make sense of the world. That's a great thing. But the problem is we can make thinking errors when we put things into context, right? So 500 years ago, when lightning came from the sky, we assigned meaning to that event and said, oh, Zeus is pissed, right? Now, that conclusion, which was negative and false, because Zeus does not exist and does not throw thunderbolts, that negative false conclusion takes root. We operate from it as if it's true. So if you're a kid and a parent or a friend or a teacher or a coach or whoever makes fun of you and hurts your feelings and calls you an asshole or whatever, and you start becoming afraid that that's how you're perceived or that's how you are or whatever, and that conclusion takes root, and then you come into adulthood and somebody says, you're an asshole. Well, you made me feel this way, and I remember they made me feel like this, and I refuse to let anyone make me feel like, right? And now you're delusional because you think you have the power to make sure that other people don't do something that they have no capacity to do at all. You're insisting that no one make you feel bad, and yet you don't have that power to influence them, especially over something that they don't have the power to do in the first place. So the statement, "you make me feel," is coded language and meaningless and inaccurate, just like the others.
Coded language, but probably the intent behind it is, would you say the intent is usually somewhat easy to decode?
Depends,
Like
but
if you,
could
know,
be.
you make me feel sad when you do that.
Mhm, mhm.
The intent behind that is, wish you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and so the idea here is there's two statements that are more accurate, more honest, and more appropriate. One is, "I feel sad." Okay, why do you feel sad? Well, I'm feeling sad because there's a rule that I have that's being broken.
Hmm.
So what is it about? It's about the rule and the fact that the rule is broken. And the fact that the rule is broken, or the perception that the rule is being broken, is what's leading to the feeling, right?
Hmm.
So we acknowledge the feeling as real and as something that matters, right? I'm experiencing sadness. So let's acknowledge it. Let's talk about that. But the truth is, I feel sad, not you made me feel sad.
Hmm.
But then the next step is, okay, we speak to the interaction and the behavior that is a part of that process. What is that? Our negative emotions over here happen because rules back here are being broken or being violated. So what do we need to talk about? The absolutely unrealistic, unattainable possibility that I made you feel something? Or do what we need to talk about is the fact that I just trespassed on or broke a rule that you have, and then your experience of having that rule broken automatically evoked inside of you a feeling that was negative. One's in reality, the other is disreality, right?
Hmm.
So feelings, which are not facts, feelings which are real and matter, are a consequence of what we think and believe. Part of what we think and believe is our values, that's our rules. So when you have negative emotions of any kind, like I always say, whether it's anger or sadness or fear or whatever,
He's holding up his hand behind the Yeti if you can't see
yeah,
it.
behind the pause right here, but Daddy's Yeti is right here. Yeah, right there.
Sorry, you're going somewhere good.
It's because rules back here are being broken. And remember, folks, the same thing is true, on this side of things, right? Positive feelings. I'm happy, I'm confident, I'm aroused. That's because rules back here are being met, right? Just as important to know about these as it is to know about these. But notice, we ain't talking about how someone else made anything or anyone feel anything. We're now talking in truth and reality. And what we're saying is, I'm having an emotional experience based upon my belief and my thought that there's rules here that should be adhered to, and they're being broken, and that's leading to this. And what is the source of all of that? Your brain, not Tyler's words, my brain, right?
Hmm.
So if we're using coded language and say, "you make me feel this," then the other person has to try to find a way to mount an affirmative defense that they're incapable of doing the impossible. And now we're orders of magnitude removed from what really is fucking going on, and we're wasting time. We're wasting energy, and we're getting frustrated. And then what happens? We start throwing more shitballs at each other, and we say, "Well, then you always do this, and you never do this, and you make me feel this, and I can't be hurt." And notice we're communicating about all that, but notice we're not communicating very well at all because we're not saying anything.
Hmm.
Nothing. It's all just a bunch of words. But you know it is what it is. People are people, and rules are rules, and business is business, right? All bullshit.
Hmm.
Dressed up to sound like dialogue, to sound like expressiveness. And it means nothing. Nothing. Because it's not about anything except mythology and hyperbole and superstition and everything else.
Mm-hmm. You know, while we're talking about decoding, it's one of the things that I appreciate the most about the framework and is the language within it.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, it's very helpful to have the most encrypted or coded type of language. When you tell another person about a rule that you have,
Yeah.
I don't know of a clearer way to communicate that. And certainly if it's a rule that's being violated or it's problematic,
Mm-hmm.
it's the most effective way I've found to be able to talk about it without it being your fault or I'm broken or you're broken or whatever
Bingo.
it is. It's this other thing over here. We're talking about a rule, not that you're a piece of shit.
Yes. 100%.
So I just wanted to point that out as we're talking about decoding,
Mm-hmm.
things. I don't know of a clearer way to communicate than these terms.
Yeah.
And I've always appreciated it.
And it's so important that everyone remember what Tyler just said there, because what he just said literally is, it's not about the person, it's about the rule.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is not the person, the problem is the rule or the rules that are in dispute.
Mm-hmm.
And folks, that's an encouraging thing and it's an empowering thing, because as I always say, if you want to change your partner, your friend, your family, good fucking luck. You're never going to do that, right? But what you can change simply and easily when you're equipped with the tools of the framework and the language of the framework is the rules. And that's why we say, the more you change your thinking, the more you can change your life. What we're doing here truly is we are encouraging you to think. We're empowering with tools for thinking. We're educating so that you can do this and so that you can do this on your own. The whole goal of therapy, irrespective of the presenting case, ultimately, is autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is, can a person learn, grow, heal, right? And then apply everything that they've learned out there in the wild and do it on their own. Because when we can do that, therapy has been effective. Therapy has been sustainable. Good therapy is not about finding a more elegant way to talk about all your fucking problems. Good therapy is not about finding ways to blame everybody else for all the stuff you feel. Good therapy is about learning how to unfuck yourself. And the way that we do that is with our brains, because that's the thinking change that leads to the behavior change that leads to the affective change. And it helps enhance relationships and manage conflict and all the other stuff. Right? So yes, it's not about the person. It's about the rule. Mm-hmm. And there's another principle for those of you keeping score at home. When we talk about behavior, we separate person from behavior. Always and forever separate person from behavior. That's what allows us to say, right now I find your behavior unacceptable, instead of finding you unacceptable. And it's the same thing with you make me feel. Right now I'm feeling angry, instead of you make me feel angry. Mm-hmm. That's a distraction. And quite honestly, it's an unintended lie. Because you're not being honest. Because you're not being realistic. You're not in reality. Mm-hmm. You're sitting there thinking that another person can turn the dials and make you feel someone. I love this business about pushing each other's buttons. Mm-hmm. It's like somehow we can see inside the carcass of someone that they've got these buttons, and then we can make them feel something and we can set them off. Horse shit.
There is at least one button.
Are you talking about the elusive for some button, or the button that the rest of us
I've heard about it. I don't even know if it exists, but I've heard about this.
Let me tell you, it's real and it's spectacular. Trust me, I found it. Go ahead.
That was my only point.
That was your only point? For those of you, again, keeping score and following at home, we do a lot of Seinfeld references, which is spectacular. And if you haven't seen Seinfeld, then shame on you, because they're real and spectacular, as they say.
I lost all train of my thought.
That's because you're button focused. That's okay.
That's true.
All right. So we dispensed with
buttonology.
Okay. We dispensed with "you make me feel" and put it in the category of horseshit, along with the others that we've talked about. So we've got a few more. Let's talk about "always" and "never," because that's one that just came up in passing in terms of coded language. I know. Yeah. And you never stop talking about it.
Well done.
Okay. "Always" and "never." And it's related to the other. We really should pair these together and have 7 instead of 8. So number 7 is "always" and "forever." Number 8 is "black and white thinking." "Always" and "never" is coded language because it is imposing upon reality something that is artificial, which is a dichotomous situation, an either-or proposition. And so the way that this coded language comes out in relationships is someone says, either you're this or you're that. Or you always pull this shit, or you never do this. And all of them are inconceivable lies. So now, why would I bring up "always" and "never" and "black and white thinking" as examples of coded language? What do you think? What's the code that we need to crack?
Well, there's certainly clearly inaccurate statements. It seems like it's something blown far out of proportion. I mean, the code to crack would be, what is the pattern behind it?
Bingo.
Perhaps.
That's it. That's absolutely it.
Right.
We're offering our decoder ring here to say that when you hear someone say this, or if you're tempted to say it, or if you do say it, what you're really trying to get at is to speak to pattern. Okay. And I jokingly said, when you asked me before we got on air, when you're like, well, what do you say instead of saying "always" or "never"? And I say, well, I'm seeing this with alarming frequency.
Which I like. Come and take that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. But that's actually infinitely more accurate than "always" and "never," because notice, if I say the word "always," if I say the word "never," I'm prompting an immediate negation, an immediate denial. So now, if in my head I'm identifying what I know to be a pattern, and the recipient of this message is now doing negation because they're negating the "always" and the "never," I think that they're negating the pattern, and now there's a sunroof in the house because I've blown my lid and gone through it, because I'm saying, how could you conceivably deny this? Well, truth, I can easily deny it because "always" and "never" don't exist. So we need better language, decoded language. And we need to speak to pattern. We need to speak to frequency. We need to speak to intensity. We need to speak to specific occurrences. And that keeps us on task. If we get caught up in "always" and "never," we're prompting a negation and going nowhere, but pretending we're communicating and making progress.
I think the only time it's acceptable for "always" and "never" is when we're separating person from behavior.
Right.
See what I did there?
Nicely done. I was waiting for something else, but I love that.
I think I was going to go down a golf rabbit hole.
Sex, actually.
Oh. For "always" and "never"?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get back to
Always make sure to do this.
Oh.
But that's where it also
Send the guy
comes
to
up.
pound the button.
So, yeah, right. Yeah. And owns the button. Yeah. I mean, we're trying, the big point is we're trying to speak to patterns. So use that word, right? Use the word pattern. I'm seeing this with frequency or alarming frequency, or seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
This is recurring. I'd like to address something that's repeating. I'd like to address something that isn't occurring with enough frequency, or something that I'm interpreting you may be avoiding for some reason, and I'd like to understand your why behind that avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So I do this one a lot, honestly.
Okay.
And then it inevitably just turns into a fight about that I said that, and we're not even discussing what we're talking about. We're fighting that I said always or never. So then that's 5 minutes before we even get to the topic and what I was trying to get out of my mouth, but I just wasn't. I did, wasn't very intentional in how it came out.
Yeah. And when we're frustrated, angry, whatever, it becomes a shortcut. A lot of these things are, we think that they're bridges or language shortcuts to sort of avoid the details and just get to the main point. But the problem is, what we think is the main point obfuscates what the real point is, and the main point doesn't even exist in reality. And so now we're fighting about something that doesn't exist, can't exist, right? So it being intentional is about getting good at problem identification. If you say you always do this or you never do that, you clearly still haven't defined the problem very well. We haven't done problem identification. In this situation, the problem is a pattern of behavior, or a pattern of avoidance, or whatever the pattern is that we're trying to identify. In the black and white thinking thing, that's often code for I'm going to be authoritarian and force you into a false choice. Either you're going to do this or you're going to do that. What's it going to be? Right? So that's you trying to structure the preferences of another person and force them into being satisfied with what you think you would be satisfied with, instead of what they may find satisfactory. And by the way, that's not a rule negotiation. That's a rule decree, because you're thinking that you're in the position of such power and control that you can structure the preferences for another person and then load it with shame and guilt in making this choice or that.
Well, you made that sound pretty undesirable. Shit.
Right. When you really take a second to think about the logical entailment of these things, and you think about antecedent and consequent like we do in philosophy, right? All of a sudden, you're immediately aware that what we're contending with here is steaming piles of horseshit. But if you ever, parents like to do this. Either you do this or or partners or bosses or whomever. Decoded, that means I am doing a power and control maneuver and likely a manipulation maneuver, and I'm telling you that I'm going to structure what options are available to you, what choices you have, and then you are going to be compliant with my structuring and pick one. And then we're going to call that choice or freedom or something else. And it isn't, right? And by the way, hardly anything in reality or nature exists as a black and white either or proposition. You got to remember that nearly everything in the known universe exists in a both and situation. So if we even think about the most classic example of this, is it nature or nurture? And my answer is yes. Because it's both. It's both nature and nurture. It is impossible in any setting other than artificial analytics to separate those two from one another and have any sense of an accurate description of either. It's both. And so we have to account for that. It means that we have to get more comfortable with complexity. And as I say, People who do black and white thinking, often what they're doing is they're coping poorly with the anxiety that they're experiencing regarding complexity. So they superimpose black and white thinking on it because they think it makes things more simple, because they're trying to manage the anxiety they have with complexity. And the problem is that the minute that you do that, you lose data and you exit reality, because it's not an either or proposition, it's a both and proposition.
Seems like you just pretty clearly described a pretty damn drastic power differential.
Yep.
Um, and I don't know of very many relationships at all where that's ever fucking going to work.
No, and you know, the deception is the place where it's most often believed that it's going to work is in the workplace.
I thought you were going to say parenting.
I think that's second most, especially
Yeah.
for authoritarian leaning parents, or parents who just don't have very good parenting skills, right? But I think it occurs even more in the workplace, because in the workplace, you're supposed to have this authority kind of thing and this hierarchy, and you're telling people what to do, you're giving orders, you're giving instructions, whatever it is. But really, it's a shaming tool. And we think that it's to inspire compliance, inspire motivation, inspire performance. And it's really a veiled threat, and it's really a shaming technique, and it's really a power and control mover. And if you're doing it, you're a dick. Plain and simple, you're a fucking dick. You're behaving like a dick, I should say, excuse me. Right? It's a false choice.
I don't know of another way to probably make a workplace toxic than to go down that
Right.
route.
Right. And the thing is, we do
Resentment
that
and-
all the time. Yeah, it leads to bitterness, resentment, right?
Yeah.
Why people leave bad managers, not bad companies, all the things, right? It is the recipe for instant toxicity. And the problem is, it's almost ubiquitous. Happens all the time, everywhere. And it's so counterproductive and damaging and all the things, but people don't think. And it's the same non-thinking as well. You know, listen, it is what it is. Either you get this report done or you find yourself a new job.
And that's just business.
And that's just business. And people are people, and business is business, and rules are rules, and you're not special. And, you know, wow. So we're doing productivity and creativity and all those things under those conditions. Eat a dick? I don't think so.
This one seems to be less coded
True.
than the others.
True.
Seems like a little easier to see through.
It is easier to see through, but only if we're thinking. I think one of the things that's coded about this one, it's a great point that you're making, is that it's used so frequently, and we've been desensitized to it. But it is easier to see through it. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Another controversial one, allegedly, and then a final one. So we're on number, I don't know what number we're on.
We're on the next one.
We're on the next one. Thank you, sir. You're triggering me.
Ooh.
What do you think about that one?
Just hearing the word trigger triggers me.
Yeah, right. That's true. Speak to that.
So, I mean, I spend the majority of my life talking about issues of trauma, trauma-informed support, trauma-informed care, and things. So I hear the term all the time. We use the term all the time. I think it's one of the most overused terms for not what we're talking about, or not actually trauma related, but it's more of a I don't know. Like, do you get that? You get what I'm saying?
I wonder if what this means is a form of entitlement and a form of evasiveness.
It's just a buzz. Yeah, it's just
a buzzword.
Bullshit buzzword for.
Yep.
It's your fault.
Yep. Right. Exactly. So when that is conveyed, what we're talking about is the transferring of responsibility, just like on the "you make me feel" thing. So You're triggering me. Wrong. No. Because nobody else is responsible for your triggers. You are. Nobody's responsible for managing your triggers. No one's responsible for activating your triggers. You are. Right? Now, another person's behavior is likely to trigger, let's say, a trauma response. Okay. Where did that trauma response occur?
Your brain.
In your brain.
Yeah.
Right? So the most accurate, if not most charitable interpretation is to say that the unintended consequences of a well-intended effort or behavior may have activated or triggered something inside of you that is yet to be resolved. We forget that trauma really is unfinished business. And if it's unfinished business inside the person, it is the responsibility of that person to finish that business. And you cannot transfer the responsibility for your unfinished business onto everyone else and make them tiptoe through the tulips because you're triggered. You have to manage your own trauma triggers. Now, you can do a rule negotiation with anybody and say, I'm in the process of working through this, or this is difficult for me, or I'm sensitive to this, and I'd like to propose a rule that we do this or don't do that or whatever. Now, that is you being responsible for managing those things and inviting the other person to participate in assisting you in the management of those things. Perfectly fine. But if you're going to sit there and say, you can't do this, or you're bad, or you're wrong because you're triggering me and I deserve not to be triggered, then you're just a person who's functioning really lazily and in an entitled position, but also in an unrealistic position. And accidentally, you're harming yourself too, right? Because the trauma is real and the unfinished business is painful. We need to attend to that. And there is an intelligent and appropriate and sensitive way to do that. But if you're weaponizing it, and this is the big objection that I have with what's happening in mental health, particularly amongst younger people these days, but older people too, they're weaponizing mental health and they're calling their trauma their sword so that they can attack the character and the behavior of other people and stay in a place of victimhood. That's not healthy. That's dysfunctional. And that's not being insensitive to trauma or quasi-trauma or however we want to call it. It's the reverse. If we're going to honor this and we're going to speak to it and we're going to treat it and we're going to support it and we're going to do all of those things, then let's talk about the ownership piece of that, and let's not transfer responsibility for the dilemmas that we're having with that onto other people and call them bad simply because they're not making us feel better about our trauma or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah, I just see, and it's probably too much time on TikTok or whatever, but most of the time I hear people talk about trauma, it's not even a trauma thing. It's
Right.
just pushing off responsibility, because
Right.
you can't get mad at somebody or, the thinking behind it, I think, is that you can't get mad at me. It's just my trauma.
Right.
When
Yeah.
it's not just you're being high maintenance.
Yeah.
Or something. There's, so that's what I meant by this.
Well, and it's, this statement, I'm triggered.
Yeah.
Now means everyone's supposed to go, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
I'll stop. I'm so sorry. That's my fault. And then the person can sit back and go, yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And thank you for recognizing that this occurred within me. Right. Oh my, and I'm the one person in the room. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot of training that says that's exactly what you're supposed to do to demonstrate kindness, sensitivity, humanity. But we're exiting reality.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're this person who's invoking that you're being triggered, Well, that's fine if you're being honest, but guess whose responsibility it is to manage that trigger? Yours. It's not everybody else's responsibility to manage your trigger. And by the way, think about it. If everyone else was responsible and therefore they fixed it, how do you heal? Because now, what? You're going to be dependent upon them to care for your triggers? It doesn't even make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like self-esteem and the validation seeking problem or the affirmation seeking problem, right? If we become dependent upon the compliments of others or the positive feedback from others because we're incapable of generating that internally, then we're converting those people into surrogates for self-esteem. Well, the same thing works for triggers. If you can't manage your own triggers and you expect everyone else to manage them for you, let's assume in some sort of dream world that they can be successful in doing that. Well, how do you ever heal from the trigger or the trauma from which it comes?
Mm.
So, really and truly, if you're successful in transferring the responsibility for trigger management onto other people, you're taking away from yourself the victory that comes from healing from, processing, understanding, and moving forward from that trauma. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Just like if you become dependent on the compliments of others for your sense of self-worth or self-value, self-esteem, whatever, you're investing in losing and you're staying stuck. Because now, if you're just constantly triggered, then you're static. And everybody else is supposed to maneuver around you? No, no. That's not kind or
Mm.
appropriate to them. It's not kind or appropriate to you either. And you matter in this, just like they do. So far from me criticizing you if you're triggered, that's not what's happening here. It's me saying, listen, if you are triggered, we got to attend to that. And our attention to that doesn't begin with you making me responsible for making sure it doesn't happen. I don't have that power or control.
Mm.
And if I do something that does happen to trigger you, I didn't make that happen in you. It was already fucking there. It was already there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your responsibility to manage that. And it's your responsibility to let me know when you are triggered and what you need in that moment. And as a kind, compassionate, caring, loving person, I can do my best to deliver on those needs that you're making of me in a proposal and through a negotiation. But if you're going to tell me that I'm bad or inappropriate because you're triggered and I've got to change whom I am or my behaviors in order for you, no,
Mm.
no. And that's how I
Yeah.
think we inadvertently at times, maybe even deliberately at times, weaponize the concept of mental health. And I think that's one of the reasons why still when people talk about mental health, a lot of people just roll their eyes because they're thinking about this example. And I think it's appropriate for them to roll their eyes on this example because
Mm-hmm.
now we think we're talking about mental health, but we're talking about mental unhealth in that. That's not mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Mental health is treating the trauma, being responsible, being accountable, doing the work, right? If you're going to sit there and declare that you don't have to be responsible for your behaviors or your bad choices or your lack of engagement because you're being triggered because of everybody else, that's not mental health. That's manipulation, that's lying, and that's laziness. It may also be pain and confusion and suffering. So let's acknowledge that. Let's work on that without committing these fallacies and all of these errors on the other side.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm glad. I think you kind of you you clarified. I mean, I was tracking with you there. Um, I think there is a legitimate need for communication of trauma and triggers, and that when people feel that, and then the whole thing is about where's the blame, uh, really getting put, and whose
Mm-hmm.
responsibility is it?
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the most part, I'm not even talking about trauma. Usually when people talk about it, actual real trauma is very, very different than what you see on TikTok usually.
Very, very different, and very different from most of what we're talking about here in coded language, right?
Yeah.
Actual trauma is debilitating. And actual trauma contains real triggers and real activations, okay? Now, here's the thing, acknowledgement of it is different than responsibility for it, okay? So I'll never forget one of the very first PTSD cases I had with a vet. He had just come back from deployment, and he was not yet going through separating from the service. He was trying to decide whether he was going to stay in or not. And it was 4th of July. He was with his family. And no, excuse me, it was Halloween. I'm sorry. It was Halloween. And they went through a corn maze. And somebody lit off a firework or something, like an M80 or whatever, something really loud. And this guy hit the deck. He peed his pants and he started shaking uncontrollably. And it was because he never expected to hear something like that going through a corn maze with his family. You want to talk about a trigger. You want to talk about an activation, right? Now, our benevolence or our love for this guy or our anger about what happened could lead us to say, who's the fucking jackass that let off a firework? I can't believe they did that, right? But then again, it's not his fault or her fault, whoever let that off, right? So we can't say, don't do those things because I'm triggered or activated, right? In that kind of situation, at least. So remember that trauma is very real. Triggers are real. Activations are real. And in this situation, it was completely unexpected. It was devastating, and it required, attention and sensitivity and all the things that are appropriate to that. But the one thing that never happened was this guy who went through this saying, it's their fault. He knew it wasn't their fault. He knew that that was an unintended consequence of some other completely undirected, well-intentioned thing, like having fun or doing whatever. So he's not spending all of his time being angry at them and blaming them and everything else. What he's saying is, man, I got work to do on this, and it was really hard for me. I wasn't expecting that. It caught me by surprise. Okay, that's him being responsible and accounting for it. And there isn't a lack of sensitivity in that. There's just a presence of reality in that.
That's a great example of that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Last one, coded language. Just generally speaking, passive aggressive language. Okay. A lot of people use passive aggressive language and they're trying to wrap it up as humor. I'm just joking, or I'm just kidding, or whatever, right? But decoded, let's make sure that we understand what passive aggressive language is, why it occurs. And it's important to recognize that passive aggressive language is simply another way for a person to express anger. Passive aggressiveness is anger veiled. What do you think about that?
I just instantly go back to a previous conversation we had where sort of the underlying root of anger is disempowerment.
Right.
If we kind of keep going back behind, what's the why of even the anger?
Yeah.
Which I still think is fascinating. And very eye-opening.
Yeah. So that disempowerment is coming either from fear or betrayal or both. And so we're going to anger to cope with that powerlessness. There's a range of coping skills on the anger continuum that a person can exercise. The most veiled and most benign version on this end of that continuum is passive aggressive language. The most extreme one on here is rage and beating the shit out of somebody or killing somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of stuff in between. But passive aggressive language can also be rather violent and threatening language, and it's veiled. It's also a manipulation technique too, and it's a shaming technique. So I think that when you hear passive aggressive language and excuse me, I got that reversed. If you're in a communication with someone and you're starting to notice a shaming technique or you're feeling shamed, is a good chance that someone is utilizing a passive aggressive language technique in the coded language there. And I think it's important to remember that when you get good at ferreting out or identifying passive aggressive language, the why behind that, what you're seeing, is anger in motion. It's just veiled anger, or on this side of the continuum, anger.
So what's the takeaway on this one?
Meaning, what do you do about it, or what? Or what?
Yeah.
Do
So
you?
I mean, so passive aggressive communication is ultimate communication of anger.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, you're either one doing it or the one receiving it.
Mhm.
So it seems like simply being informed about it is probably helpful for both, unless you are just trying to be a dick.
Right.
But
And
most,
even if you're trying to be a dick, there's a why behind that. But go ahead.
yeah, well, I mean, most people don't wake up just thinking I'm going to be passive aggressive today and
Right.
treat people like,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Do you find that most people do it without even thinking about it?
I do. And a lot of people who are good at it do that because they're accustomed to it, because they learned that as a rule in their family system of origin.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a parent who was really good at passive aggressive language to veil their anger and their emotions.
Thanks, Grandma.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get trained and you kind of do it yourself, even when you were aware that they were doing it to you and you were bothered or offended or hurt by it, but then you kind of pick it up as a habit, which is behavior in the absence of thought. And it's a rule that has transmitted cross generationally, like most rules do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a self awareness piece and the empowerment of rewriting that rule and being intentional about not following that rule and following a different rule that helps if you're the one doing it.
Yeah.
If you're the one that's on the receiving end of it, it's kind of the same thing as everything else, that you call it by its name and you use that language, and then you inquire about the why and maybe ask, are you feeling angry? Why are you feeling angry?
Mm-hmm.
Now, very often, the passive aggressive person who does not have awareness that they are even angry, let alone that they're doing passive aggressive communication, when questioned, challenged, or confronted, is likely to deny it and then ironically get angry about that. Get angry about the fact that they're being called passive aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where we remember, we say, okay, I'm not calling you passive aggressive. I'm saying that I think that that communication, that statement sounded passive aggressive. So I'm inquiring about that. And I'm wondering if you're angry about something,
Mm-hmm.
or you're frightened about something, or you're feeling disempowered about something. Where's that coming from? What's that about?
Mm-hmm.
And then at minimum, it gives the person the opportunity to think about that. But good chance is they're just going to deny it and become angry about it. But you decoded it, and therefore you didn't fall for it, right? You didn't fall for the shaming technique. You didn't fall for the manipulation technique. You didn't internalize it, which was their goal. Their goal was to make you feel bad, to get you to change your behavior, right? Well, you didn't fall for that. And I think that's a very important first step. You didn't absorb it, didn't internalize it. And that's a good way to change the behavior too, because that behavior, that passive aggressive behavior, is goal directed. So if it doesn't achieve the accomplished goal, then there's a good chance they may stop using that and start using something else. And if that happens, then that's a win too, because now we're making a behavioral modification and a behavioral change to get to need fulfillment that hopefully is more adaptive than the maladaptive version of covert anger in passive aggressive language or statements.
I like it. That's a good tip for the ninja decoders out there.
Whoa!
When you hear the passive aggressive, hit them with, "Why are you angry?"
Uh-huh. Yep.
Probably shut that shit down right there.
Real quick. And then you're probably going to see something like this.
Say what?
What you talking about, Willis? And then you look like you know the secrets of what's going on. Yeah. So it's an empowerment thing.
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
Good stuff.
So that's what we do here, folks. That's what the framework is. All right. This is all about, we're encouraging you, we're empowering you, we are educating you, because when you change your thinking, you can change your life. Be watchful for coded language. It happens all the time. We use it, we hear it, and it is a distraction from reality. It's a distraction from progress. It's a distraction from authenticity and truth. All right. Decode the language to be honest, to get to the truth, because there you find the sustainable results, the viable communication and meaningful communication and interaction that you're looking for in all your relationships.
Yep. Good job tonight.
To you too,
I
sir.
think you laid some shit down.
Laying some shit. We did.
Once again.
Nice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this as always.
It's always fun.
Yeah. So we got golf Sunday.
Yeah, we do.
And we got, what is it going to be? Barbecue tonight, or are we going to do another thing? What you feeling?
I could go for barbecue.
You want some barbecue?
I could do that.
God, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So we're off to eat grilled meats.
Off to eat. Glad you could be here for that conversation.
Yeah. Yes. You guys have fun. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Use the framework. Change your thinking. Change your life.